Today's food system is surprisingly energy intensive, especially when it comes to meat and to dairy products. Fertilizers, tractors, irrigation, transporting feed and animals, heating and cooling and processing, all of these use large amounts of fossil fuels. So how can we change this? Well, one way is to change what we put on our plates. Welcome to the Exponential Race to the Top session on how to accelerate the transformation to plant-rich food. And joining us for this session are Thomas Schuss, Director General, Ministry of the Environment in Luxembourg. And just before I come to our next guests who are outside Santa Marta, just to remind them that we are in a very noisy area, aren't we, Thomas? Yeah, indeed. Everyone's excited about the transformation away from fossil fuels. On the magic of Zoom, we've got Cosimo Serrano, head of Electrolux Food Foundation. If I've got that wrong, come back and tell me in a few minutes. Caroline Reed, Senior Sustainability Director at Oatly. We may have Kate McKenzie, Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Food Policy, New York City. And again, wonderful to see Johan Falk, the CEO and co-founder of the Exponential Roadmap Initiative. So, Johan, let's go to you first. Okay, how can a transition to a plant-rich food help us reduce carbon emissions?
Thank you, Nick, and it's great to be here. And plant-rich food is a really incredibly powerful climate solution, which can reduce emissions in the value chain, methane, land use, and so on. So we're talking about almost up to 30x difference in certain cases between a plant-rich food compared to beef. And it's of course not about telling people what to eat, but actually developing food which is more healthy, tasty, affordable, and become the easy choice.
The moment, Johan, in this transition?
We've been seeing a generally positive trend in terms of plant-rich food. And a key point is, of course, signals from cities, from companies, from public to make plant-rich food the default choice. And the advantages are huge, both in terms of lowering emissions, health, land, and protecting nature.
Super. Let's go to Caroline. Caroline, where are you coming in from? You look like you might be in Santa Marta. You've got a most fantastic backdrop there.
I wish I was.
Oatly have been qualified as a climate solutions company. What does it mean and why is this important for you?
What it means is that, firstly, our products have qualified as climate solution products, meaning they are at least 50% less climate impact than the average product in the category. And from Oatly, the original oat milk company, it's in comparison to milk. And then we're a climate solutions company because more than 90% of our revenue comes from climate solutions products. So we're very proud to have been qualified as a climate solution company based on the framework developed by the Exponential Roadmap Initiative. And I mean, what it means for us is that it provides another level of credibility that we are part of the planetary health diet and the future food system. But beyond Oatly, we also hope that other companies can also be inspired to develop and produce climate solution products, and also that investors as well as policymakers and governments identify how to remove barriers and enable these solutions to scale so we can all reach a global net zero.
Good, Caroline. And so beyond cutting your own emissions, which obviously is important, how is Oatly helping to change, in a sense, the global culture of food? So the plant-rich eating becomes the default for everyone, not just a lifestyle choice?
Yes, it's a great question. I mean, it's the biggest challenge and opportunity for us to actually use our product and our voice to influence and change the system around us, in addition to decarbonizing our supply chain and scaling regenerative agriculture. And as Johan said, I mean, it's not about telling people what to eat, but we really need to change the whole conditions around us to transform all that we eat to plant-rich diets. And so from Oatly's perspective, we have a product that fits into existing habits, meaning that we want to make it very easy for people to change their behavior by switching out cow's milk for Oatly, which happens to taste amazing. That enables this switch to more plant-based diets and also lower climate impact. And then in addition to that, we want to use our brand and our voice to really shift the narrative. We need to normalize plant-rich diets. They shouldn't be seen as niche or woke. We want to really use a fun and playful way of engaging with consumers, but being grounded in science, both for health and climate science. And the final point is we need to be where people are. So we really want to show up everywhere from schools to workplaces, from cafes to trains. And so being where people are, being part of the food environment and making it easy, accessible and delicious to choose Oatly is really what we are doing to try and change that kind of cultural shift. But really, there's only so much one company or the food industry can do to change the culture. We really also need to see a big shift in policy, which would enable that more scaling of plant-rich eating. And we need policy to stop supporting the status quo in the food system.
Good, Caroline. Thanks a lot. Stay with us. Thomas, you're our live person in the studio. You're representing Luxembourg. What is the country doing, in a sense, on this journey of plant-rich food?
We're looking at that transition from 5 different angles, and I want to just mention a few of them. One is the production side, of course. And I want to pinpoint what the EU is doing systemically on the EU deforestation law. I think that's something that is potentially a game changer to make it less attractive to produce meat because it becomes more costly. Because the externalities that are linked to deforestation are actually factored into the prices that farmers will have to pay and for the land, etc. So that part of the equation is interesting on the production side. Then when you go into energy, for instance, and decarbonizing the food industry, there's some very straightforward things that we try to do. So Luxembourg has 6 focus areas around the world, and we try to do similar things than the ones I'm talking about now in all of these. And on the energy side, it's very sort of pragmatic. What do farmers, what do companies need in terms of electrifying their transport, for instance, or decarbonizing their fertilizers? So is there access to fertilizers that have been produced in a clean way? The processes that go into producing fertilizers, etc., etc. That's not necessarily already shifting away from meat. But it does make meat less attractive in many ways. Then on the demand side, which is probably the one that I'm most passionate about, we believe that schools, they're not governance in the larger sense, but schools are the drivers of change very much. Kids learn something in their canteens and then bring it back home to their families and say, look, mom and dad, we're still eating meat 4 times a week, and that's not the case in school. So you have a sort of demand that's inside the family that way. So trying really, and that's something we're pushing in Luxembourg. It's a small country, but still, I think it's a good way to grow a shift in perceptions of what the table should look like, what the food on the table should be. And the health link also on the demand side. I think that there's a lot of progress in society, at least developed societies, but I think just as much in emerging markets, in developing countries, the realization how much food is linked to health and food is, and it's always been the case, but especially also the pollution that goes into food and let's say the health risks that come with a non-balanced diet when I grew up, nobody was talking about too much meat actually being a problem. Too much sugar in the Kellogg's in the morning would be a problem. So there is at large, I think, a better understanding of the importance in shifting. So the consumer is king in many ways, and it's true for textiles and for other areas. But in the food domain, it's a big thing to work on to really support that sort of transition. And we do that, for instance, through science as well. We have tried to map out the whole food system in Luxembourg, from the producers to the importers to the different, Horeca, as we call it, the sector that's serving food, the restaurants, the hotels, and how we can also influence their choices. And it starts in the supermarkets. And so I remember this study from the University of Luxembourg where they did a pilot on consumer choices in the supermarket, and they found out that men and women, they shop very, very differently, and so they were trying to figure out what sort of information needs to be on the etiquettes, on the labels, in order to influence. So what is being read and what is not being read. Men, apparently, they shop for wine for 10 minutes, and then they go for the next. Women, they shop for 30 things in these 10 minutes, and so have much less time to read in detail what it says on the labels. So they're looking for some maybe more, headline display of information, etc. So very interesting things to understand there. But I don't want to take up too much time. I know the time is ticking.
No, thank you.
I'm only at point 3, but I'm sure I'll come back to your questions later.
Very interesting on different ways in which people of different genders shop. That's quite interesting indeed. They also shower differently as well. Men spend more time in the shower because they end up shaving themselves, which wastes a lot of water. Anyway, let's come up to Kate from wonderful New York City. Kate, we understand New York is moving faster on plant-based food compared to many other cities. How could New York turn food systems transformation into a strategic advantage for itself and for its citizens? Yeah.
Thank you for that question. New York is working to create a healthier, more affordable, equitable, and more sustainable food system. We're proud to have made tremendous progress in nudging dietary shifts and promoting the consumption of more plant-forward diets. As we've heard, it's a really powerful way to support the health of New Yorkers and to reduce the climate and environmental impact. So your question about how to use this as a strategic advantage, quite frankly, is a really interesting question. I think for us, our real way into this work is the fact that we, for many years, set food standards. And our food standards are rigorous, evidence-based nutrition guidelines that aim to improve dietary intake and advance our health equity goals. They were first enacted in 2008, and they're updated every 3 years. Now, the current standards require 2 plant-based meals per meal type, such as breakfast and lunch, and we require those to be served each week. Now, in partnership with our health department, we provide example product lists, including plant-based items and blended products, to help move the needle. So by supporting our city agencies that serve more than 220 million snacks and meals a year, we can create the environments that are healthier for people and the planet. So when we think about those food standards and we think about how we're driving the markets across the country and in many other places, that's our strategic advantage, is really that market demand that we create that so many other cities across this country and even across our borders can be able to follow. And I think that we've already seen that happen, and we're the largest school district in the United States, and other cities look to us for our really aggressive and healthful standards that others look to follow.
What do you need from companies to do? I mean, what do you need them to help fast forward this? I'm sure there are some food companies that maybe don't appreciate what you're doing, but lots of others that do. So what do you need from the companies?
I love that question. I think that there's a lot of companies that look for our food standards, and when we're the second largest buyer of food in the United States, companies really want to know what we're doing, and so they will formulate for us. but also you all are looking at the trends too. It's, you know, we want to see those minimally processed items, but I really want to also stress that we struggle, and I know that we're not alone with this too, of a real crisis of food insecurity. And we really want to make sure that that our kids are, especially our kids, but all of our vulnerable populations, certainly in New York City, but across the United States and beyond, are eating. Period. So I really want to stress, and I love that we're drawing in the manufacturers as well, because if it's not delicious, then really, what's the point? So we need to make sure that that whether it, especially when we're looking at whole food, plant-based products, you know, that we're bringing in flavor and we're bringing in cultural deliciousness into our foods. And you know, you all know New York City. It is a, we have so many different palettes and so many different different flavors that we want to enjoy, and that's such an opportunity for us to be able to, especially really nurture some of the young palettes that we have. So that, you know, it's been mentioned throughout this conversation already. This is so connected to health, right? And when we create young, healthful consumers, we're really doing ourselves a favor. And that's, again, what's driving this so much for us. And so we are partners with our communities. Again, those blended products are really interesting for us, looking at some of those blended products. So that's a strategic advantage, is trying to introduce what our food standards are, partnering with our vendors, our business community, to introduce and do a lot of taste tests and samples, because if people aren't going to eat some of our products, then we're not going to put them on the menu.
Right. Let's go to Cosmo. Cosmo, you're, Cosimo, sorry. You're head of the Electrolux Foundation, celebrates its 10th anniversary this year. What's your mission in this area, and how does your work help to achieve it?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me in this important discussion. Yes, it's been 10 years that the Electrolux Food Foundation has been created by Electrolux Group. We have the mission to educate people and inspire more sustainable food habits in the society. We do not do this by preaching, but we work a lot with education, actually at the intersection of food, education, and culture, because we want to create some change that lasts, and we don't want to adopt top-down mandates, but we want to shift how people view and consume and relate to food, and connect with them at a deeply human level. In order to deliver this mission, to deliver the initiative that we have together, we have formed a global partnership that is called Feed the Planet, with our partners, World Chefs, ISEC, Griffith Foods, and this gives us an extraordinary reach. We are able to develop and deliver programs in basically every country around the world. World Chefs is present with their local chef societies in more than 100 countries. ISEC volunteers are based in more than 70 territories and countries around the world. Same for Griffith Foods and their footprint. We focus a lot on educating kids. With our Food Heroes workshop, we go into schools in our spaces to talk and discuss about sustainability and food. We do professional training programs to form the next generation of chefs and culinary professionals that will shape the food supply in a way that is more sustainable than it is today. And we also raise awareness in society, because we want that all together, chefs, cooks, adults, consumers, young people learn what is wrong with today's food system, and they shape their habits in a way that it can last for decades going on.
And Cosimo, just let us also know, how can this approach that you have at the Electrolux Foundation, in a sense, reduce the world's dependence on fossil fuels?
Well, it is a good question, because people tend to forget how food systems are connected with emissions, coming from the use of fossil fuels. On the on the surface, food education and energy transition or phasing out of fossil fuels, they can seem like separate conversations, but they're actually deeply connected. If you take food systems as a whole, they account for almost a third of the global greenhouse gas emissions. And, most of this is connected to the use of fossil fuels. So when we help people shift towards more sustainable diets, we are also making food system polluting less, using less fossil fuels, being less energy intensive. And so the same when we train chefs and young people to understand this connection, then we are creating a generation of professionals on the supply side and citizens on the demand side that will make decisions every day, every meal, 3 times a day. They have the opportunity to make decisions that will shape food systems and help transition them towards a more sustainable, way of organizing themselves and producing food. So it is a powerful lever that is very often underestimated because it is a great part, an important part of the energy transition.
So I'm going to just quickly, briefly ask Kate and Cosimo, what do you need from governments and also from local government, cities and states, particularly in the United States? States are very important, aren't they? What do you need from them? What do you need from regulators? What do you need from people like gentleman here, Thomas from Luxembourg, a government? What would you ask him? Yeah.
So, as coming from local government, I'll share that we work with our city agencies and as a whole of operations in the implementation. It's been incredibly important to get buy-in at all levels. So, I'm talking about from leadership to cooks and the population served. So this has entailed partnerships with nonprofits to develop some of our new and culturally relevant plant-based recipes, who are actually, in some cases, providing culinary training to kitchen staff and embedding food and nutrition education into our programming. That's really essential, that whole feedback loop from consumer to partners to leadership. And in some cases, certainly all of our funding in many cases is coming from our federal government. So we really need to rely not just certainly on our government partners, but also my partners in philanthropy help us to be able to experiment in different ways. We had a fantastic opportunity with the Carbon Neutral Cities Alliance that enabled us to do plant-based culinary skills training with our correction system, to do new and different culinary training opportunities to do plant-based culinary training. So, to be able to change systems, you need to be able, in some cases, to try things differently. And that is where sometimes government can be a little bit sticky. And again, sometimes philanthropy can sometimes help to come in and provide those opportunities. So that's an enabling factor that we can be partners together with.
Cosimo, what would you say to our gentleman here from the government of Luxembourg if you operate in Luxembourg? What would you want from him?
Well, we do have projects in more than 45 countries, so also something in Luxembourg and countries around. We also collaborate already in few countries with ministries, and especially the Ministry of Education. We have several of our programs targeting younger generations, because we believe if young people understand what's the impact of their food choices today, they can already start, being part of the solution to make food system more sustainable. So we have the content to teach people, raise awareness about food and sustainability. We need the public sector to open doors to us. We don't even need funding. We just need to get to the target audience for which we develop this content. So far, we have already educated more than 400,000 kids. The goal to 2030 is to reach 1 million kids. Of course, that could be surpassed well in advance if public sectors, ministries, all educational institutions would partner with us into reaching more and more kids and speed up this transition that needs to be urgent and quick. because it's already putting too much pressure on the environment.
Yeah. Any thoughts? Education seems a big thing here.
Well, very quickly, I just want to say Cosimo is working for the Electrolux. So it's already Lux in the name, so it's halfway to cooperating already. Now, I want to say that my grandmother used to say, you know, as long as I keep cooking so well and granddad gives you money, you'll come by and see us. And so why am I saying this? Because I think a lot of it is the quality of the offer. So how compelling and appealing are these products that are coming from the alternative food segment? And the other thing is the price premium, right? If the perceptions of these things change and the demand changes, and you can work on competitive pricing and just quality output, I see no reason why this is not continuing to go the direction that it's going.
Yeah.
And so I'm all for it, and we will support it along the way.
We're slightly running out of time, but I just wanted to share one thing with everybody, that there was a big meeting of scientists in the UK government last November called the National Emergency Briefing, and one of the clear messages from the scientists to British politicians was, if you want to make the UK resilient against future climate impacts, then you have to massively reduce the amount of livestock on the land and reduce the amount of meat eaten to literally perhaps one hamburger every 2 weeks. That's going to be quite a tough sell to the football fans in Britain. But anyway, that was a fascinating glimpse into maybe a different future. Johan, what's your takeaway from the session?
I think it's been a great session and fantastic contributions from all on the planet, all on this panel. Human health and planetary health is sort of absolutely interconnected. So this is one of the most promising areas which can actually be accelerated. And there is already a fantastic movement. It was already mentioned that cities can do a lot. Schools, we can also integrate food in every climate plan. I think that's essential as well. It's really about innovation and bringing tasty, good products to the market. I think that's essential. Making it more default, more plant-rich than only plant-based, I think is important. And of course, the pricing and incentives that the products need to be affordable. And if you're combining that and bring together the leading parties and the one willing to go in the front line, I think it's important. It's possible to really accelerate this movement. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We're right. Actually, we're slightly over time, so we have to say the magic words. Thank you very much. And moving on.